Hello, my name is Andrew Johnston. I'm the president of ETS. Today I'm here with Mark Hura of Oracle Utilities.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, so we're here today at the Energy Times Empowering Customers and Cities event in Chicago, where Oracle is a really big voice on the future of cloud computing and how that interacts with the grid. And Mark, I guess my first question is really looking at the challenge. What are the biggest data storage and computing challenges that you see associated with the utility and energy industry today?
Yeah, you know, from an Oracle perspective, for the last 3 decades, we've actually been helping customers and organizations really actually extract information and data, right, and get real value out of that for their organizations. And as we've seen our business evolve into technology and applications to help run their businesses, you know, you start to look at all the transformation that's occurred around how they can really get valuable insights and outcomes. And with that, you have to start to look at where the data lies, right? And so from a utility perspective, and what's changed dramatically is the amount of information that they're receiving, whether it's on the edge of the grid with technologies that they've invested in, smart meters, smart switches, renewables, or whether or not it's information from customers and outside sources. How do they actually utilize that information?
Yeah.
And there's many ways that they can do that. They can do that within their own premises, but also thinking about the new technologies that exist that other industries have already adopted, really around cloud. And it's really transforming the way other industries are operating, and it's an opportunity for utilities to see how they can actually transform their businesses and serve their customers as well as their own operations more efficiently with technologies that are around the cloud.
It's so interesting you talk about this in juxtaposition to other industries. MIT and Capgemini did a study that found that the electric and utility industry is actually lagging behind other major industries, financial services, healthcare, fields that Oracle has been leading in the operations and sort of the modern governance and accounting of those systems for decades. Yeah. How do you help the utility industry sort of move forward in this cloud computing era?
Yeah, so I'd say there's a few things that we look at. One is we actually serve those industries, right?
Yes.
From a global perspective, we work with the largest financial institutions in the world, the largest communications providers, health sciences,
yes,
retail and hospitality. When you think about everything from online retailers to in-store retailers to restaurants, hotels, and stadiums. And so those experiences that exist that we can bring to the utility and share with them what's happening in those other industries is the right way to start so that they can get a broad view and a frame of reference.
Yes.
Secondly, it's working with policymakers and regulators to educate them around the advancements of the technologies that exist. The industry, particularly in North America, is really, if you think about utilities and how they're rewarded from their regulators, it's return on those assets that they invest in. So when you think about a model like cloud, the availability of technologies of cloud and how they're rewarded isn't necessarily aligned to how the regulators allow those utilities to earn a rate of return. So taking the advancements of technology in the cloud and helping educate regulators about the advancements around other industries, around security, and the elements that exist that utilities can take advantage of to improve their operations and enhance how they respond to their customers.
Yep. What parts of our data should, in the energy industry, what part of that should be first migrated to the cloud, and which parts should wait?
Yeah, I think there's areas that exist that we can see within utilities today, that whether it's their financial systems,
yes,
human capital resource management systems, their sourcing and supply systems, are ones that utilities are starting to move in those directions already today.
Yes.
I think customer information management systems, as much as people say that customer information, we think about banks today, we think about our telecommunications providers today, or retail providers. They have information about their consumers and what they do. And so we don't look at that as a big risk when the utilities are the only ones that have access to that encrypted data of customers that may be on their system. So that's one that we're working with utilities and regulators to help educate on. And I think when you think some of those operational systems, those real control room aspects that are controlling power flow, are really going to be the ones that are going to reside still within the utilities as we see it in the near future.
That's a perfect explanation. I love that. I think about some of the areas that you highlighted, that ever-increasing data one of the challenges when I was at a utility, and my utility friends, they always tell me, is we're getting more and more data, we're getting more and more technology, but we're not syncing that data and that technology to make our jobs easier. How can cloud computing help utility staff, energy industry staff do their job better, more effectively, and more cost effectively?
Yeah, so if you actually think about what's happening in IT budgets, and whether it's utilities or other industries around the world, 70 to 80% of those budgets are actually spent on maintaining and integrating legacy systems.
Wow.
Right? About 20% is really around security, compliance, and regulatory needs. That leaves a very little amount around innovation. How do you take information now in many different areas and bring it to other parts of the organization so that the workforce can be more productive in the field from a utility perspective, so that they can look at how do they maintain their assets more efficiently, and so they can look at how do they respond to regulatory requests around changing pricing models for utilities and offering those to consumers in a very rapid manner. Those are the ways that we can take advantage of the technology to help the utilities improve how they actually improve their operations overall.
How can cloud computing what way can cloud computing best become a force multiplier for the utility?
When you think about on-demand needs from a compute and storage perspective, when we think about cloud, whether it's a SaaS, which is an application that's in the cloud, we think about PaaS, which is platform as a service, the ability for the utilities to take those applications and build extensions into the areas that they need to differentiate their businesses and have that on-demand need. When they need more storage, when they need more capability, the cloud provides them to have that on-demand need in that environment, as well as that infrastructure. So spending more time on innovating and differentiating around their business model shift and less time on investing in the infrastructure, using the cloud for that on-demand need, that storage need, and the ability to innovate around the platforms that they invest in.
That's really interesting. So it almost seems like an indirect way that cloud computing can enable and expand greater revenue generation for a utility.
Yeah. That's one way to think about it. And whether it's revenue generation or productivity of the workforce or assets that they have, improving reliability or safety, those are all areas that are core to the utility's business operation.
Yeah.
If you think about how do they get into the core of their business and the changing needs of their consumer, the ability for them to leverage where a company like Oracle has its strengths and where we've transformed our business to serve our customers around the cloud, to have that high-speed compute and capability and storage and applications so that they can do their jobs more effectively, improve their outcomes, potentially improve their revenues, and how they serve their customers.
You're talking about the outcomes, and really those outcomes, the human is the most important component on the grid, right? And you're talking a lot about things that are really at their heart about human performance, about situational awareness of the human on the grid. And a lot of these things, I like hearing you explain that they really help people deal with their challenges. What's the next wave of cloud computing services to help human performance, to help situational awareness? What can we expect in the next few years that will enable that? You talked about real time, but...
Yeah, and so some of the areas, our focus is really around the leading edge of innovation. And
yeah,
think about
You're
the
Oracle.
edge of the grid. Right? We think about the edge of the grid in the sense of a utility. There's so many things that are happening on the edge of the grid. Whether it's investments and assets that utilities have made to provide information and data that's out on their network, or more importantly, what's happening from a consumer perspective, and whether it's distributed energy resources, whether it's storage, or whether it's just the opportunity for consumers to act more in terms of the real-time nature of what's happening around energy in their lives and in their communities, where Oracle is investing in our technologies is to allow those utilities to enable what's happening on the edge of the grid, right, in real time, to be able to see how they can respond, react, to provide more of the resources that are in the field, the human nature aspect, both from a consumer as well as the operator, and how they can actually interact more efficiently and be able to deal with those demands that are going to happen on their network, some that are happening today, and then some that we're supporting the utilities that they can see in the future.
So it's really, we're here at empowering cities and customers, and essentially you're explaining the way that Oracle helps both the people do their job better and let these cities operate better. At the same time, I see cloud computing scaling so rapidly, dealing with reams and reams of data we've never dealt with before, managing that, curating that. How does that impact the enablement features of cloud computing? I've always understood cloud computing, the more it scales, the more it changes the value proposition.
Absolutely.
Why?
So if you think about cloud computing, and one of the biggest benefits of cloud computing is around the big data, right, aspect of this. And big data gets thrown around, cloud gets thrown around a lot.
Used to be called statistics.
Right, used to be called statistics. And so when we think about big data, and what you just mentioned there is there's an element of it being a holistic information management strategy around new data sources, unstructured, structured, and as well as old data sources that exist. And in Oracle, we look at it in kind of 4 V's, I'd say, right? Whether it's volume, and volume typically means mass, scale, right? The more volume and mass that's there, there's more insights that can be generated in there. The second V is around the velocity at what data is actually coming in and what you actually enable and act on in that period of time that data is actually coming into the cloud and or what's on the utilities network. The third is variety, right? The third V is variety. So we think about variety, there's so many different types of data today, whether it's social data, whether it's video, voice, text, or things that are coming in from real-time systems. There's unstructured data that can actually be converted into similar structured data environments so that you can then create and leverage that data more efficiently. And then lastly is value, right? So all data has value, but it needs to be discovered. And so what Oracle is doing around the advent of cloud and around big data is to help customers extract that value, which is really our premise for the last 3 decades, is helping customers extract value out of the data. And we're doing it in new ways today that really are supporting not just utilities, but all industries around the world.
I'm going to ask one more question before we close out. Can you maybe give us, and since we're here at the Empowering Customers and Cities event, can you give us an example of purposeful storytelling that really tells that about the volume, the variety, the range of value that Oracle is bringing to this conversation? Is there an example of a utility or a partner you've worked with that really empowers them and you can share with the public?
Yeah, I think there's a number of utilities that we've worked with, and I'd say right here in the city of Chicago and with one of the sponsors of this event from a ComEd perspective and an Exelon, they're focused around innovation. And they're focused around really having an organization that is a learning organization and a culture that has a desire of emerging technologies. Oracle has been a long-time customer, or Exelon has been a long-time customer of Oracle, and really changing the way we interact and engage with them to be a real strategic partner and helping them understand the ways we can allow them to innovate and innovate more rapidly around what's happening on their network, their infrastructures, with their people, and with their customers as well.
So here at the Empowering Customers and Cities event, I'm really excited to hear about how Oracle is evolving the volume, variety, the velocity, and value of data for the utility and the customer of the future.
Yep, you got it.
Mark, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah,
This is
thanks.
exciting times.
I appreciate it.